Welcome back to another Wednesday on the Pagan Perspective. I'm your Wednesday host, Yeka, and this week we are talking about connecting with whatever's central to our past, whether that's deities or nature or whatnot. So the question actually comes from our own Angelo this week, who wants to know, or writes, people often complain about not feeling connected with the gods. What do you think connecting with the gods is, and what for you are the signs that you feel connected or disconnected with gods? And then we added in a little note, and I do apologize for the wind this week. I tried to find the most secluded little area to do this video, because the foam that goes over the microphone on my camera is actually missing. So I think that might have been stolen by a 2-year-old. Anyways, so we put in the note for those of us who don't have deity in our path. We talk about feeling connected or disconnected from our practice in general or other form of power. So I am a pagan. There's lots of pagans who do not believe in gods or don't use gods in their practice. So for me, my practice is about connecting with nature. And that would be the closest thing I think I could find to talk about this week, is how to connect with nature. And I find it very easy to accidentally become disconnected, to slip away a little bit, because not that humans and our society and our constructed homes are not part of nature. They are, because we are part of nature. But it's so easy to get wrapped up in all of that as to forget the rest of nature. We can spend so much time inside that we forget the wind, that we forget, that we don't appreciate, remember, feel part of the ecosystem that we're a part of, and on whatever level of ecosystem we're looking at. So I actually have a couple of different actual practices this week that are things that I do and I want to share with you as practices that you can do if you want to try to do a little bit of reconnecting with nature, or perhaps connecting for the first time. So those practices, I always suggest grounding and doing some sort of grounding first. I think that's really, really important. And I do have a video about that on my personal channel. I will link to that in the cards and in the description if you want to check it out. It's a little bit of a longer video. But those 3 practices are based on actually getting outside. It's important to be outside, and that's the biggest thing about feeling connected, is to have that physical connection. I know that it's not always possible, so these are designed to do that in a short period of time. Now the first I've talked about before is sun time and star time, and that is going outside once during the day and once at night. Personally, I love doing nighttime when there's a meteor shower going on, or when the moon is in an interesting phase at night that you can go out and visit with it. And then also, I'm talking about maybe even only 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, going outside during the day and getting sun on our skin. So getting sun on our skin, in our eyes, is so incredibly important just for us on a physical health level, in terms of our hormone balance, our circadian rhythm, all of that. Just our eye health and feeling energized. But I think it's also really important for me on that, just on an emotional level, on that connecting with nature, just spending that time, just breathing. I don't remember who the quote is attributed to, but it goes around the Facebook and Tumblr and all of that occasionally, where it's something to the effect of, oh, everyone should meditate 15 minutes a day, unless they're busy, in which case you should meditate an hour, or some numbers like that. But I think spending time outside is a little bit like that too. It is a form of meditation, but it's not as much a going in as a going out. So the next practice is actually about being present outside, being present in nature, but allowing the internal dialogue that we have, the stories that we're always telling, allowing all of that space that we take up to kind of shrink in a little bit so that we can be more present and less disruptive with wherever we are, whether that's our backyard or park or even just the balcony, or if you go miles into the wilderness or whatever. And that is, as I said, to take our bubble, our sphere in. And one way to do that is to, again, begin by grounding, but then try to feel, and it might help to visualize this as well, find what your personal space is, your personal bubble. And that would be, how close would you feel comfortable standing to somebody, next to somebody, without that feeling uncomfortable? And find what that is. And if you are a visualizer, visualize this bubble around you. And take time to feel that, explore that around you. And then begin to breathe. And as you breathe, slowly let that come in and in until it just barely surrounds your skin, barely surrounds your form. And be present in that, um, taking up less space and allowing more contact to happen for just a little bit of time. And the third, and these are things these are actually building on each other, so you could do all of these at once or one at a time. But the third one would be to examine each of our 5 external senses, so not including proprioception or things like that, but our sight, um, smell, hearing, taste, and touch, and focus on, when you're outside or in a natural setting, to focus on each one of those and go, what am I smelling? And just hang out for a moment smelling and see how many different things you can smell. And looking around, and this is the one that we are usually most present in, is our vision. And what are we seeing? And look, and maybe look on the ground and look and search for those ants and search for some of the things you might not normally see. Go ahead and you know, taste some sticks or some grass or whatever is around, or a stream or something like that. Feel the wind, um, listen, do all of those, and use the 5 senses as that framework. One might use the elements. If one uses elements, look for examples of the elements. So I think, so those are my 3 kind of practices to do. But I do recognize that sometimes we don't have the ability to always go out and still need to make that connection. So a couple of different things that one could do on top of those, or in addition, um, that I think are really powerful, would be things like trying to incorporate some gardening or hunting into your practice. Composting is something you could, even if you're in a high rise, you could compost with worms. You could do vermicomposting, and just connecting with that part of the cycle. I think that that's very potent, because in our human environments, especially in today's consumer world, we can often be very disconnected from the rest of the cycle of nature, the rest of the cycle of life, because we just have these items coming in. We go to the store, we get this item, and then we throw it away, and we never see and experience the rest of the cycle, the death and the regeneration part of it. So that composting is incredibly powerful and is a great reconnection with nature. Some other things that you can do is grow potted plants in the house, or have a little fountain, and also recording. So listening to, you can find a ton of these on YouTube where you just forest sounds. can type that in and you can come up with hours and hours of the birds chirping and wind and water trickling or the ocean or night sounds or whatever it is that suits you. Rain. I love rainymood.com. I go to that sometimes. And just having those around us in our environment can, even if we're not outside, can help ground us and reconnect us a little bit with everybody else in nature and help us to feel more part of it. So I think that's what I've got for this week. If you have any techniques that you use, would love to hear about those in the comments. And we've got some more interesting topics coming up, some ones that are going to be kind of interesting. There's some different takes on them for these next topics coming up, so I can't wait to share that with you. And until next time, take care.